Hi, I'm William T. I'm the principal architect of WTA Architecture and Design Studio. WTA was started in 2007. We used to be in a firm with other partners, and then so we separated 2007. That's when we started WTA. So pretty early on, we already had projects going on because these were projects from the other firm that we just continued. And yeah, so it's been since 2007. We celebrate our 15th year this year, and we've been working on various projects all over. Well, I think the project that really hits home for me are the quarantine facilities. We built these facilities at the height of the pandemic, last March 2020. And for us, it's a way to show how architects can actually respond to problems, how we can create solutions for our community. And we've been able to share, these solutions all over the world. Of course, nobody saw the pandemic coming. But when we started this office, we've always focused on design, as something that is based on ideas. Our architecture is largely about coming up with new ideas, trying to discover new things, trying to change our city for the better. Our vision is about design, refine, and define. So when you design and keep refining, whatever it is that you ideate, then you're able to redefine or define a certain typology or how people live, how things are, and that's been the goal ever since. Well, one of the things we really push for is social architecture. When we talk about social architecture, the way we see it is that you kind of try to create, buildings that help support better communities, right? And so the three things we always talk about is social intimacy, where you try to build hyper-local and convenient, public institutions. It's kind of like the way, our society changed when we moved from desktop computers to laptops and then mobile phones. So what if we can make our architecture come to us? Why can't we have neighborhood parks? Why can't we have locally available libraries? So these are the things that we're trying to change. The other is that the Philippines probably has one of the most segregated societies in the world. And so what we want to do is we want to free up these public spaces, remove barriers, allow for much better freedom of movement, meaning open up our parks, open up our public spaces, basically making these public spaces accessible to the people who need them the most. And then lastly, we talk about social scale, where you're looking at public buildings having another side to them, meaning instead of being just, let's say, for example, a bridge is just a bridge, but trying to imagine how these social infrastructure, how they can actually serve to connect our communities, how they can serve to build better communities, so they contribute to the social fabric of our city. So I think these three things are largely what defines what we do as a studio. Of course, it begins in everything. For example, in terms of homes, are we stuck with this idea of either having, gated subdivisions in our cities or small condominiums, which we have? Those are basically the two biggest typologies we have. So what's the middle ground? Is there a middle density that we can explore? Because that will change how we live. We can't just live either in a pigeonhole or in a McMansion. There has to be a middle ground that serves, a better purpose for the city. So these are the things that we look for in terms of how we live, how our city is planned, So yeah. For me personally, bathrooms are your special place in many ways, because that's where you have, your private moments. Basic sanitation is the one thing that is almost a bedrock of civilization, right? Once you introduce someone to better sanitation, they can't go back. That's the one luxury that always keeps going up. So really, that's a mark or a hallmark of how society develops. And you can trace it all the way to the Romans, to everyone, to the Indus Valley. I think having a young mind, regardless of age, means that you are more willing to explore, right? And I think that's very important in any design culture, this curiosity, right? So that's something that we try to nurture in our studio, that you continue to have this curiosity to play, and that's why we have so many toys everywhere. We want to instill this culture of play, right? Design is about play. If you remember when we were all young, how we would set up our toys, how we would try to create narratives or stories. That's what design is all about. It's how you instill, this spark of a story, right? You can get facts, you can learn them, you can read a book, but stories tend to remain with us, especially good stories. aside from architecture, one of the things that probably lasts the longest throughout history, from the ancient world or the medieval world until now, are the folk tales, are the stories that are passed down from one generation to the other. The people who made them could disappear already and be gone, but these stories remain with us. And that's why a good narrative is important, when you're doing design and architecture.